What's good, YouTube? We're talking college sports in the Deep South, where college football is king. And on the plains of Auburn, the battle cry is War Eagle. Good morning, Auburn fans, here on the Auburn Football SportsTalk. Just a real brief one this morning, as the topic has continued to come up about strength and conditioning. Let's go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel, and as always, War Eagle. Now, this strength and conditioning coaching as it relates to Auburn or any other football program is a very, very loaded area of concern. Current strength and conditioning coach Ryan Russel is definitely in charge of making sure that the players are prepared on a physicality standpoint, in the hopes of possibly preventing injuries. Now, there's no secret that over the past couple of years, Auburn has had some very detrimental injuries that have changed the course of the season. And that's why, it starts to kind of glare out. When you look at 2017, you look at Kerryon Johnson going down with a shoulder injury, and he basically had been hampered with injuries throughout his career. Cameron Petway with an injury, hamstring injury that wound up hurting Auburn's chances, at least against Georgia. I think if Cameron Petway plays in that Georgia game back in 2017, Auburn wins that game pretty handedly because of the impact that he had on the running game. Then, of course, you had Sean White, who goes down with an injury, broken wrist, I think he had. And when you look at all of the injuries, are they strength and conditioning related? How many season-ending injuries has Auburn really had? You got Daquan Newkirk, who had an Achilles injury. This was even before spring practice started back in 2018. And that's why that has been a long-term injury. Now, I think sometimes the Auburn fan base, unfortunately, some don't like the term realistic, because when you use the term realistic as it relates to Auburn, some folks translate that as either mediocrity or settling or complacency, things of that nature. Now, I would say this: if strength and conditioning was really a detrimental issue for Auburn, let's look at last year. We'll just use the defense, for example. The defense played a lot of snaps last year. Some games it was staggering. We'll just say that much. Some games over 40 minutes of play on defense. Still managed to hold teams to only, less than 20 points. Was still in a lot of those games, even Alabama, late in the third quarter, until Alabama started taking advantage of Auburn's secondary. But really holding up pretty much throughout the game. Of course, fatigue will set in if you're playing against a bunch of fresh guys who are able to continue to rotate out. And, I just think for an injury to occur, and the first place we look is strength and conditioning, and that's cited as one of the sole problems or being a sole issue. I don't think so, because I guarantee you, this is just off the cuff. I think if Auburn would have won 10 games last year, the anxiety about injuries would not be as much. If there was so much, if there wasn't, quote unquote, so much that the fans have put on the line, or that media has put on the line for Auburn this year, injuries are a natural part of the game. Do you think Alabama, when they have an injury, do you think it makes the news to where the whole fan base has just been out of shape? It doesn't happen. Clemson, I'm pretty sure it has been riddled with injuries, but they just move on. When you think about the extent of the injuries for Auburn coming into this season, like I said before, Daquan Newkirk, that's an Achilles injury. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the strength and conditioning ain't gonna help that. Anthony Schwartz, blocking drills, could be a strength and conditioning issue. He spent he didn't spend any time with spring ball, And Auburn, especially with Gus Malzahn calling plays, the receivers are going to be asked to do a little bit more blocking, a little bit more physical blocking. That could be an issue. That could have been a strength and conditioning issue. Could have been. So it's kind of a fine line, you know. Some of your best conditioned players may suffer nagging injuries. You know, there's some players that, you know, have been dealing with certain injuries since they arrived at Auburn or since they arrived at their respective universities where they're going to play ball. Another thing that can be a factor is the level of conditioning throughout high school, and then you translate over to the much more complex level of conditioning in college. That might not be an easy transition for a lot of guys. So a lot of them might actually strain shoulders and strain ligaments even in the strength and conditioning process because it's so much more dramatic than what we would presume than what they had to go through during their high school tenures. Now, I will say this, you know, none of us are inside of the facilities to see, you know, pretty much how they work out, like to what extent they work out. But all indication shows me that Auburn at least has a sound strength and conditioning program, but garnishes a lot of criticism once, say, a very important player gets hurt. You know, like when Kerryon Johnson goes down, okay, the best justification as to why he goes down, to I guess maybe to make ourselves feel good about it, is we'll just cite strength and conditioning. When this dude is actually running the ball 30 times per game. And, you know, if that's not strength and conditioning, I don't know what is. You know, so players are going to have these nagging injuries because, hey, football is a contact sport. As a matter of fact, strength and conditioning aside, I'm amazed that college football players or just college players, period, don't get hurt more often than they do. It just really shows the strength of the optimal strength of a human being. Now, like I said before, I don't have all the questions. I just wanted to bring it to the forefront. Maybe some of the subscribers might have some more detailed insight as to, you know, the extent or how the strength and conditioning plays a role in Auburn's recent outcome. So if you could just leave a comment, go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel, and as always, War Eagle.